Welcome to Outlaw Radio, the show focused on helping fellow Christians navigate this new reality of being outlaws in a world that is growing more and more hostile to the way of Jesus. My name is Zach Adams, and I pastor a church located just outside of Athens, Georgia. The name of the church is Calvary 316. If you'd like to learn more about our church, what we believe, times, locations, if you want to check out one of the sermon videos, you can find all that information at our website, which is calvary316.com. You can also find links to watch our service as we stream on Sundays at 10:30. As always, I'm joined in studio by my brother-in-arms, Spice Daddy over here, as well as the producer of this dysfunction, Mr. Creighton Vaughn. Creighton, explain to the audience how this show works.
So, Outlaw Radio is a live stream show that is also released as a podcast. I have no idea what camera I'm looking at. Now, that threw me off. So basically, the show
You're just
first
super
streams,
nervous because of the special guest.
Nervous.
You are so you got to plow through that.
Oh my gosh.
You got to plow through that.
All right, we're gonna get to why I'm nervous in just a second.
Yeah, that's coming.
So, the show first streams on YouTube, Facebook, and X, which is what we're doing right now. And the audio then is podcasted tomorrow on Apple, Google, and Spotify. Also, if you listen to us on Spotify and you notice an episode not there,
please let us know. Yes, let us know.
Spotify has
terrible
messed me up more than once. I hate them. Anyway, if you're joining us live, we are monitoring the comment section on all of the streams. So please don't hesitate to drop a comment or submit a question at any point during tonight's show.
Any guesses beforehand of whether...
No, we're not even going to go there. We're just going to do this. We're just going to...
You can also text Zach directly at his actual phone number, 678
right here
438-9202. That is the best way to get your question onto the air because Zach is much better at interrupting himself than I am.
That's true. That is very true.
If you're listening to the podcast or if you're watching this on a later date and you have something that you'd like to let us know, please email us at popecreighton@gmail.com. That's Pope, P-O-P-E, Creighton@gmail.com. How was that?
That was great. So the big tease for tonight's episode.
I'm sweating.
The big tease is that we have a special guest. We're going to do an interview, special guest. Spice Daddy absolutely knows who the guest is. I know who the guest is. In fact, there's quite a few of you who know who the guest is. But what's funny is Pope C has no idea.
I want to be clear. This is the first I've heard that there are other people.
Oh, yeah, we've told them.
Oh, yeah, no, like all my kids know. And so we had to be.
That's why Quincy was looking at me like that.
Yeah, I had to be very clear that they had to keep their mouths shut. And so with all that, we've got the wide shot. So you're going to be able to kind of enjoy this moment with us. Jessica, let's bring in our special guest for tonight, the Outlaw Radio Show. The special guest, here we go. Come on in. Coming on in.
Mom!
Golly, no way.
No way. Oh my God.
It's Creighton's mom.
All this because Creighton left me and Zach alone one Wednesday night. This is what happens when Creighton leaves us alone.
He leaves us alone. You had no idea.
I had no idea. I was convinced it was Matt Thompson.
Nope.
Mom, hi. How are you here?
Well, sit down. We can talk about that. We could go through the. Here, we'll pull this up.
Oh, yeah. I don't know how that shot's going to be. You're a lot taller than my mom is.
Well, we were working on it. That's why I wanted you to sit in the chair.
Yeah, no, I would have.
Now you've figured that out. Here, we'll scoot up just a little bit more.
Oh, my goodness.
All right. Spice Daddy, explain how this all.
So basically, the last time Creighton went on vacation, was it back in September?
It was in September, yes.
I come and hang out with Zach, and we're just sitting around brainstorming, talking about the future of Outlaw Radio. What can we do to do things better?
Just get situated.
And we just kind of concluded
directly into this part of the
we kind of concluded on bringing more guests in every now and then, not focus of it, but bringing more guests in.
Well, we had two aims. It was we want more guests, and we want to just figure out how we can just sabotage Creighton as severely as possible.
Yeah. And we immediately thought about bringing his mom on and not letting him know about it.
And in fact, we were sitting there, and I was like, well, let me find out right now. Yeah. And I text you immediately.
Yes.
And your mom was like, I would absolutely love to do this.
I can't believe that.
Since August.
How?
Yeah. I kept a secret.
I saw my dad and my brother this past weekend.
Well, that's why I asked if your mom had come up.
Yes, and I said no because I did not think she had.
And that's when I knew your mom
Since
and
Friday.
Oh my gosh.
that's when I knew your mom and dad had bold-faced lied to you.
Yes.
Oh my
To keep
gosh.
this a complete secret.
That's insane.
I love it.
Yes.
I love it.
So you got you're
Oh
wearing
my
your Creighton
gosh.
beanie
Yeah.
Yes.
with the woman that named you Creighton.
Yes, and the woman who bought the beanie.
And bought the beanie.
I did.
Well, that was funny because you said, well, who else buys me clothes? And you went through everyone but your mother.
Well, yeah, she's the only other person.
So you had no clue.
I had no idea.
This is great. So where did the name Creighton come from? Oh, by the way, audience, this is Reko Vaughn,
Hello.
aka Miss Reko.
Yes.
So I will refer to her not as Reko, but Miss Reko.
I will also call her mom.
I will call you. I will call you Miss Reko.
Okay, that's fine.
I've known Miss Reko since I was
4 or 5.
a little. I don't remember. I'll put it this way. I don't remember. You're still need to like do camera stuff.
Yeah,
here.
I know. I'm a
you're-
little bit flabbergasted. I'm trying.
You've been thrown off your game.
Yeah, but
Spice Daddy, we did it. We did it.
oh my goodness.
you.
Absolutely. So
Yes,
anyway,
all right.
I've known Miss Reko my entire life, and she has not just was it, and we were talking about it. Not just did we want to have Miss Reko on the show, for Creighton, but she also has just a powerful testimony and profound. In fact, I don't know if you remember this. I was thinking back about it, but when I was a youth pastor years and years and years ago, we did like a Sunday night program, and
Yes.
you came and shared your testimony, and those were the early seeds of. I've wanted you to be on the show anyway, and so it worked out to have you on the show to surprise Creighton.
Yay.
So we are very delighted that you're here.
Thank you.
And so let's just start with like, where did you come up with the name Creighton?
Okay, so that's a very long story, but I had Carlton, and I wanted
Carlton's
to...
my older brother.
Right, his older brother. And I wanted to honor Stan. His name is Stanton. So I wanted to come up with another T-O-N name. So I was looking through the name book, baby name book, started from the back, because that's the way I do things. I was picking out names, and I came across several that could have been his name. And then when I got to what would have been the front of the book, what was the back of the book for me, I saw this name Creighton, and it just leaped up off the page. It was, as soon as I saw the name, I knew it was his name.
Knew it. Creighton.
Yeah.
And here I am,
And here you are.
30-something years later.
And he is whatever a Creighton is, that is who he is.
That is who and what he is,
That is who
for
and
sure.
what he is, yes, absolutely.
For sure. Well, please keep in mind that at any point in tonight's episode, if you have a question for Miss Reko,
Sorry.
you can. Well, Creighton's going to need to. Work on it a little bit.
Okay.
We didn't. By the way, we didn't do like a camera set or a mic check for Miss Reko for obvious reasons. So we're doing a little bit of that on the fly as we're going. But at any point, if you have a question, you can drop something on either the feed on X, on YouTube, on Facebook, or again, you can send me a text directly if you have a question. So let's just let's kind of dive right in. Tell us just broadly about yourself, about your walk with the Lord. Again, most of the audience have no idea who you are.
Right.
And I know that there's going to be a particular angle that we're going to take kind of our conversation. But maybe introduce yourself to the audience just a little bit, just to kind of lay some groundwork.
Okay, so tell me where I should look, because I don't even know. I mean,
Okay.
That's a good question.
So the camera closest to you,
Okay,
look at that one.
I see that one. Okay.
Yeah, I like to stare deeply into the lens.
That's why we don't let him have a camera.
Okay.
We removed his couch and we removed his direct line of sight into a camera.
All right. All right. So my walk with the Lord began a very long time ago, even before I got saved. I grew up in a church, went to church every Sunday, but they were Sunday Christians, and I didn't think you could truly live Christianity. And so I went off and did my own thing. And so eventually I had gotten to be such a heathen that I know you have no idea, right? I had gotten to be such a heathen that the Lord was letting me know that it was my time to either get saved or go to hell. And my heels started burning, and I had to choose whether or not I was going to listen. And I chose to listen. And I went to this church that he told me to go to, and I walked in one person, I walked out a separate person. I got saved in the midst of the teaching, but I don't know what the pastor taught, because I wasn't listening to him. I was listening to the Lord talk to me. So I don't know what the pastor taught. It was Jesus and me, and he let me know that if I didn't get saved that day, I would never have another opportunity.
How old were you?
27.
Wow.
Almost 28. Yeah, I was...
Where were you living at the time? What were you doing?
Upstate New York, in a place called Rochester, New York. Just kind of, I was going to school at St. John Fisher. What do you want me to-
you need to tighten that, man. It's dipping.
Gotcha. Is it dipping?
It's dipping. That's
Okay.
what's happening.
Keep going, Mom.
I can't
You
do
kinda
anything
threw me
here.
into the wolves here, Zach.
Yeah, I know. We
sorry.
did, but you got to use some muscle on that, Creighton.
Man, this thing does not want to hold, does it?
It held when I did it.
It did.
You're a lot bigger than I am.
Spice, jump in here. Very quickly.
Here we go.
I think it's all right.
Leaning over.
All right, we're going to go wide for it.
Yep.
Hey, guys.
There you go.
There you go. That should hold.
Yes.
So anyway, I got saved, and
Perfect.
the rest is history. I've been walking with the Lord now 40 years.
40 years.
40, almost 42. Yeah.
Let me ask you a question about walking with the Lord for such a long period of time. You know, there's this, and you had the very dramatic, like, I'm living this life of sin,
Yes.
hedonism,
Yes.
and you had a real come to Jesus Damascus Road type moment where it was like,
Absolutely.
this is I need to do this.
Yes.
But now you've been walking with the Lord for 40 years.
Absolutely.
There's this idea, I think sometimes, I think primarily with younger Christians that, you give your life to the Lord and you start walking with Jesus, but you don't immediately see like major life changes. Like you expect to be from sinner to saint, and positionally you are, but at the same time, like,
It's a process.
and like Paul towards the end of his life, he's like describing himself as the chiefest of sinners. Like, you've been walking with Jesus for 40 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. How do you feel about that walk 40 years later? You know what I mean?
If I could go back to where I was 16 and listening to Billy Graham in the stadium in Ocala, Florida, where I had the urge to go forward when he gave the altar call, and I resisted it because I thought, I haven't had fun yet. If I could go back to that night, I can still see him up on the stage. I could go back to that night, I would make the opposite choice. I would have gone forward and gotten saved that night, but I didn't. I thought having fun was more important.
Yeah.
Well, having fun almost cost me my life, my physical life. But the Lord gave me an opportunity to get saved, and I grabbed it.
How'd you meet Stan?
In church.
In church.
In church, yeah.
So you met your husband at church. You were 27 when you got saved. So how old was Stan when you guys met? And
we got married when I was 32. So I probably met him at about 29 and a half, 30.
So I feel like my mom is leaving some things out because that's one of my favorite stories of all time. So, Mom, what church were you at when you got saved in Rochester?
Calvary Chapel of the Finger Lakes, which is, they now call themselves Calvary Chapel of the Finger Lakes, but at the time it was Maranatha. They met in the caboose in Pastor Bill Gallatin.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Pastor Bill.
Yeah.
And then my mom moved to Atlanta at some point.
Yes.
Started going to Calvary Stone Mountain.
Yes.
And then how did you go from Calvary Stone Mountain to meeting Dad?
I met Dad in between the two. I met Dad at
In
a faith
between the
church.
two.
At a faith church.
Gotcha.
Yes. And then I realized that what they were teaching wasn't the gospel. Well, it was pseudo gospel, but it wasn't word by word.
Yeah.
So I was like, I'm starving. We got to get out of here. I walked in. Your dad was doing Exodus. He was talking about. He was talking.
book to walk
a
into.
book to walk into, and he was talking about going through the Red Sea. And I walked out of there feeling like someone had taken a plant and stuck it in dirt. I just elevated my whole inside, and I was like, yeah, we're. And so we came to Stone Mountain.
And then you had two little boys
Two little boys.
that grew up at Calvary.
Yes.
And you adopted a daughter.
Yes.
And you're a grandma.
I'm a grandma. Yes,
So that's a little bit, again, just wanting to give just some context for people that might not. Now, you don't live here anymore.
No.
That's why it's so surprising.
You orphaned Creighton.
I did orphan Creighton.
And your dream is to live at the beach, right?
Yes, but he's got really good adoptive parents.
I sure do.
It's true.
Yes, he does.
He does. The Parkins.
The Parkins.
The
Yes.
Parkins.
Yes.
So
I can't believe you pulled this off.
I can't believe I did either, really. I mean, the funniest moment was when we were at El Real, and this was early on. And Justin, he called me afterwards. He was like, I can't believe you pulled that off. Because we were sitting there, and you were trying to figure out who it was. Mm-hmm. And I was like, Creighton, we're not going to tell you. And then out of nowhere, I turned to Justin. I go, how funny would that be if we invited his mom? And we just ran with that. And you were like, you're not going to do that.
Because I didn't think
and you totally ruined it.
But you've said that a couple times since.
Oh, I have. No, I've told you.
And every time you said it, I thought to myself, how in the world is he going to get my mom up here? Like, she has to deal with my niece and work and I guess that worked out.
This is just a learning moment for you, never to underestimate me and Zach.
Apparently.
Yes. Especially when you go out of town and leave us to our own devices. So there is, I before we went on air, I told you that we could talk about whatever you wanted to talk about. Mm-hmm. And you kind of came in with, I think, a real bold direction, a powerful direction. And, so there's, we have the Pope Creighton, Gmail account because of Creighton taking a 23andMe.
Yes.
That I told him he could not do without first checking with his mother.
Yes.
And which he did. And so that led to Creighton finding out that he's Italian, which I think deep down always kind of knew.
Yeah.
I do. Yeah. I come off as Italian.
And your hate of Christmas.
And your hate of Christmas.
Because of the Romans? Is that a Romans
because
joke?
You killed,
Solid. I like it.
Because you killed baby Jesus. And so
I'm so glad I wore this beanie today.
I did tell you should do up your hair. I did tell you that. That was another clue. So, Miss Reko,
yes, sir.
I just want to kind of hand the floor over to you.
Okay.
And I want you to talk about what the Lord's put on your heart for tonight's episode. And we're going to kind of just listen.
Okay.
And I'm just going to ask questions when it's necessary. So the floor is yours.
I have note cards.
I see that.
I do, because I don't want to get lost in it.
Understood.
All right.
Well, and part of that will be my job too, is I'll help us not get lost in the weeds.
Thank you. All right. So the reason that I want to focus on this is because recently I was watching a clip of the current vice president being interviewed by Oprah. And there was a little clip in there where they were talking about a woman's right to choose.
Right.
And there was a young girl who was in the audience, and they told her story that this little girl at 12 had been raped by her stepfather, and that the little girl had gotten an abortion. And they gave her a standing ovation. Okay, this little girl was in the audience. They had her to stand up, and they gave her a standing ovation. And I thought, oh, no. This shouldn't be that way. Abortion is the ending of a life.
Right.
Okay? My mother, the reason that I exist is because my father and his friends raped my mother. If she had had the option for abortion, I wouldn't be here. But because of the time, 1954, abortion was a coat hanger.
Right.
Okay, so she didn't go that route. She had me. But here I am. I come out, rural town, Florida.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, to a normally looking young black girl. Everybody in her family is black, and here I come. Okay? And they're like, who is this child's father? Well, it became the town gossip. They had to figure out who my dad was. Well, they couldn't figure him out because the one that they wanted him to be is an innocent man. I feel bad for his family. He got tagged with being my father for my whole lifetime, but he wasn't. And I knew from an early child that he wasn't it. I don't know how I knew, but I did. So when Creighton decided to do the 23andMe, and he came up with a name, I'm all off my notes. Anyway,
no, you're fine.
It's
all from the heart.
Yeah, he came up with a name, and once he got a name and couldn't get a response from anybody that he could identify in the tree, I did the Ancestry.com.
Okay, so you had done that.
I did it after he did. After he did. And it brought me right back to the same name he was given, okay? But it wouldn't connect my profile with that family profile because they had theirs blocked. But in the list of potential names, the name was the same. So I knew that it was bingo. So eventually we were able to connect with one cousin, and we got a picture. So I have a picture of my dad. I now know his name. I lived my whole life not knowing his name, not seeing his picture, not having any clue in this world who he was, except that he wasn't the man that everybody said he was.
Can I ask a quick question,
Sure.
just for some context? You obviously you knew that you were conceived out of wedlock.
Yes.
But the true origins of your conception
Were a mystery.
being a gang rape,
Mystery.
et cetera. You didn't grow up knowing any of that.
No.
When did you come to know that bit of information about yourself?
After, excuse me, after I got saved, I walked into the house one day, and my mother was sitting on the sofa, and she said, "I have something to tell you." And I said, "Okay." She said, "Sit down." And she said, "I don't know why all of a sudden I've remembered this, but it's been bugging me all day long." She had blocked the memory of the rape. I was 27 years old when she told me. And one of the things that the Holy Spirit does for me, when something hits and it's true and it's hard,
Yeah.
he will kick me in the gut,
Yeah.
okay? And he kicked me so hard, I was like, oh, that is true. It was true. I knew what she was saying to me was truth. But I didn't, at that time, Ancestry.com.
There was no way to find out any of that. Right.
No. So it slid. And she didn't mention it again until she was on her deathbed in 2017. 2 times in her life she talked about it.
And on her deathbed, she brought it back up.
And she said that she didn't know why they had done that to her, but at least she had me out of it.
So let's go back to kind of the beginning of your telling the story
Okay.
about seeing this interview
Yeah.
with our current vice president and Oprah.
Mm-hmm.
And there is, and you know, and to even be fair to them, you know, one of the things that gets washed away in the abortion debate is that even like your diehard Republican pro-lifers
Yeah.
will always say, except for obviously if it's a situation of incest and rape. Right. You know what I mean? Like, it's always like both sides of the aisle seem to try to like couch out this, like, these two things, incest and rape. But that's what really hits you, though.
It does hit me because what happens is when you make those exceptions, it doesn't matter. If God is God, he is
Amen.
able to take the negative things in life and work them for good. The problem is that man wants to be in control of man. We want to make our own decisions. We want to be in control of everything. And the problem is we can't even control the next breath.
Amen.
We can't. Who are we to say that this child, because it was conceived in rape, doesn't have a place in life?
Right. Isn't worth living.
Isn't worth living.
Right.
And who is to say that this 12-year-old girl, and I don't mean to pick on her, but that was the example put before us. This 12-year-old girl now has not only a rape thing to live with, she has to live with the fact that she murdered her baby.
Yeah. And nobody talks about those psychological issues.
And it's difficult.
Well, get back to your note cards.
Okay, back to my note.
Get back.
Okay, so what I wanted to start to say is that slavery ended in 1865. Okay, I was born in 1955. That's a 90-year span. That's a span of one person's lifetime. But in that span of 90 years, there were 7 generations. So I'm 7 generations out of slavery. All right. So when I was born, it was the idea that some, excuse the expression, some white man had been tipping, okay, to have this baby being born. But that wasn't the case. It wasn't the case. And my mother, because she stuffed the memory, she never talked about it. She never told her mother. She never told her grandmother. She never told anybody. She didn't tell me until I was 27. So she lived with this thing, messed up her head.
Yeah.
Messed up her head. So when I was born, everything in the world was segregated. The schools, the water fountains, the bathrooms, the churches.
Where did you grow up?
In a little town called Reddick, Florida.
Okay.
Right outside of Ocala, between Ocala and Gainesville.
Okay.
Not even a traffic light.
Farmland.
Farmland.
Farms and horses.
Yeah, farms and horses. And so everything was segregated. It was ugly time. So, having said that, nothing happens in this life without God's permission. Lamentations 3:37 says that he knows and he works all things. He knows it has to have his permission to happen. Okay?
Yeah.
So, whereas I am the product of a rape, God had to bring my mother and my father together to produce me. There wouldn't have been 2 other people in the world who could have produced who I am. So
who God knew before the foundations of the earth.
Who he knew before the foundations of the earth, who he had a plan and a purpose for. You know, I've lived a long time now, and I would like to think I've contributed something good to the world.
I know one. I know one.
Yes. So, you know, he had a plan for my life, whether it came out of negative circumstances or not. So there are people who say, but the world can't sustain the number of people who would be born if abortion wasn't in place. Well, we don't know that because they're killing all the people off. Who knows that someone who they've killed would have come up with some solution for food shortages or
cancers yeah.
Who knows? So, we are his handcrafted workmanship. He has a purpose for each one of us. Each one of us. So, Psalm 51 says, I was brought forth in iniquity and conceived in sin. That's truth for my life.
Wow. That's heavy.
Yeah. However, it also says that he desires truth and that he will make me know wisdom, that he will cleanse me and I will be clean and my broken bones will rejoice. Okay, so am I a victim? Was my mother a victim? My mother was a victim, but am I a victim? No, I'm not. I'm choosing not to be a victim or to be victimized. Does that make sense?
It absolutely makes sense. Spice Daddy, at any point, if you have a question, by all means, jump in. I will say, regarding the abortion conversation, you know, this is an election year. Mm-hmm. There are, you know, I don't know how much this moves the needle this cycle or not. But can you speak to women and this I'm trying to be tactful in how I phrase it.
Okay.
But this autonomy of the like it gets phrased like that it's a life, or like I have choice, and I want bodily autonomy. Just speak to just broadly the topic of abortion, how this resonates with you, why you feel so passionately beyond just the obvious.
Yeah. Okay, so I remember when Roe versus Wade was passed into law. It was 1973. I was a senior in high school. And the argument was that it was for incest, life of the mother, blah, 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 blah. Well, that has since long become passé. Abortion is now birth control.
Right.
There is no responsibility.
No restraint.
No restraint, no responsibility. Oh, I'll just get an abortion. Well, there's such a thing as birth control pills, there's abstinence, there's all kinds of things that you can do as opposed to just aborting a baby. I saw one clip of a girl, she said, I've had 40 abortions, I'm going to have 40 more. Hello? What are they thinking? It's not birth control, and it is not your body. There is another body inside of you.
Right.
Okay, so if you want to have control over your body, then you need to do something other than create another body inside of you to get rid of.
What would you say, like, just to really personalize it? We've brought up the 12-year-old that had been raped and had an abortion and got this standing ovation. You've lived this life.
Yes.
If you had an opportunity to have a one-on-one with her, what would you say to her? Let's say this. What would you say to her as she's weighing her decisions before the abortion, and then what would you say to her now that she has, in her current situation? Just from your own life experiences within that.
Pre-abortion, I would strongly ask her to consider having the child and allowing someone who loves it to adopt it, or keeping it if she wants it. But at 12 years old, you really don't want it. But maybe her mom could take it, maybe an aunt could take it. Just don't kill the baby.
Right.
Don't kill the baby. And yes, rape by a step parent is a really horrible thing to go through. I get that. But
that's already happened.
It's already happened, and you're making it worse. You're doubling down on the negative effect of the experience by killing the child. Because if it's they consider it abortion when the baby is in the womb, but it's murder.
Yeah.
You're murdering a baby. That's a viable human being. Post-abortion, if she had the abortion already, I would ask her to bring that hurt and to come to Jesus with it, and let him heal her heart, and let him help her to forgive the person who hurt her, and help her to forgive herself for having the abortion, because at some point she is going to get to the point where she realizes that was a baby.
Right.
And I killed it.
Yeah. And that child, and this is what's great about our Christian worldview and our biblical position, is that child was known. That child is in heaven. That child got to avoid a lot of the heartache and the pain and suffering that comes with life.
Yes.
And even being born into a situation that would carry a lot of stigma. You understand that. Like,
yes, I do.
At the same time, Jesus is the healer of broken hearts, and
and he heals very well.
He does.
He does.
He's good at that.
He's good at that. He's a good God.
What would you say to the two women that brought that 12-year-old into a public forum to point out what's happened to her? And then
political gain.
For political gain. Well, I mean, what would you say to the vice president or Oprah for participating in such, like, that's not something to to celebrate.
Yeah. But the vice president is thinking that she is going to win America's heart by allowing the LGBTQ thing and abortion and legalization of pot. It's all negative. It's all negative. Everything she is building her platform on is negative. There's nothing positive in it. Whereas Oprah probably feels like she doesn't have a choice but to support Kamala, because to do otherwise would be business, would be, she'd kill her popularity.
Oprah's Teflon. I mean, Oprah doesn't have to do anything Oprah don't want to do.
Right?
I mean, let's be real.
I get that. But she has constituencies that would say, how dare you not support her? You know, the whole thing with, here we go on this political thing. So let's change subjects. Okay.
People can be real tribalists. Nobody is above canceling.
Right. Oprah might be. Oprah and Tiger Woods.
Well,
you know what? Tiger Woods made it through a lot more.
Yes.
I have a lot of thoughts about the political scene right now, so we'll just move on. We'll move on from that. But I want to get back to the idea of pro-life. Okay.
Yes, please.
Pro-life is more than just the baby in the womb. Okay? Pro-life is life, is choosing life, is choosing the positive over the negative. It's saying, it's my notes, addictions.
Yes.
Okay, all sorts of addictions, whether it is pornography or drugs or sex or alcohol or gambling. All of that is negative. Okay, all of that it's death inducing. So you can't move positive when you're focused on a screen that's killing your heart inside, killing your mind, your thought processes inside. So I can't read it over there. Suicide is pro-death.
Yeah.
Okay? So is trafficking of human life. So is self-harm. So is a whole bunch of other things that are all negative. They're not, the people who are involved in this are not looking to the Lord for life. They're buying the lie that they can't be holy, that they can't be righteous, which is not true. We can't do it on your own strength, but you can do it through the blood of Jesus. And so
that's why they call it his righteousness.
His righteousness.
It's not our righteousness. There are known right. No one's right.
No.
But it's his righteousness that's imputed on our account. It's placed on our account.
Yes.
Which is a beautiful thing.
We're to choose life. All else is death. We are to choose truth with a capital T, truth, because everything else is deception. Mm-hmm. We are to choose freedom, right? Mm-hmm. And not be captive to habitual sins. And the pornography and the gambling, all of that is habitual sin. It's that thing that I know if I open this bottle, I'm going to open another one. I know if I take a drag on this joint, it's going to lead to something else. That you're willingly putting your neck in the noose, and you're saying there's no way out of this, or they are saying but there is a way out.
The way that you would describe it to me as a kid, because we've had conversation about this more than once in my life.
I'm
surprisingly, is always trying to get as close to the edge as you can, and then getting upset when you fall off.
Okay.
Now I know that you had a very particular direction you wanted our conversation to go, and I wanted that to continue. But I do want to circle around,
okay,
because you're making this point, like you're broadening what pro-life is, mm-hmm. To the idea of life, and life, and that more abundantly, like what the world offers as far as life, and what Jesus offers as far as life.
Yes.
And you went through a kind of a litany of things of like, hey, this is this, and this is that, but this is where it leads. It leads to death.
It leads to death.
Me knowing your story, your conversion story, we went real quick just to set some context. But you're not making that exhortation. You're not saying those things without a depth of actual meaning and understanding of what you're saying. Because that was, you just said, well, I lived a life of hedonism.
I did.
But you could speak personally to like, hey, these things, leave you empty.
Oh, they do.
So
Absolutely.
Speak to that. And I know you didn't want to go like too big into the life before Christ, your conversion, but I think for some context, some depth to what you're saying, that might be helpful.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yes, I do. Well, because I did not have a dad, and I had no idea who he was. Up until last year, I had never seen a picture of him. I didn't know his name. I had nothing for a father. Okay, so I was never tucked in bed by my dad. I never could go running if I had a boo-boo. It was a very, I had people who were my guardians. They weren't my parents, but they were my guardians, but they were not the huggable kind. They were,
more stoic.
Yeah, very stoic.
Depression era.
Yeah, so because I looked like I looked, I didn't fit on either side of the social divide. It was, it was very much white and black. And in my high school years is when the integration came to, and I couldn't find, like I lived in the black community, but I knew I wasn't all black, and I wasn't necessarily accepted by the people around me on either side, really. So
there was a true stigma to that.
There was 90 years post slavery.
Right.
So
and 4 years post Civil Rights Act.
Yes. So.
And there was already a bit of town gossip.
Yes.
About you, so. your how you were conceived.
Yes.
That to compound
yes.
matters.
And it was a very small town. There was no way to get away from it. It was, yeah. So what happened was I started looking for affirmation and love, but in all the wrong places, with all the wrong people, with all of the wrong motives, and very quickly went down a very slippery slope. And I started messing around with drugs, and got involved really some very negative relationships, trying to self-identify. Who am I? Yeah. I have no idea who I am. And it was important because everybody was either black or white. I was neither. I was gray. But I had nowhere to go with that because my mother had left me in Florida. She lived in New York. So I couldn't even go to her and say, I need help navigating my social world. I had nothing. I had nobody. So I made a lot of wrong choices. A lot of negative energy spent, very angry, very hateful, seeking acceptance, seeking
identity.
Yeah. I think when I was younger, I was a really bright kid. I could think. But then once I started doing the drugs, it ate all of that away. And by the time I got saved, I couldn't start a sentence and finish it. I would get lost. I would know what I wanted to say. I would start to say the sentence, and before I could finish the sentence, it would be, gone. But once I got saved and I started spending lots and lots of time reading his word and understanding it and putting the puzzle pieces in place, Bill Gallatin is a great teacher, putting the puzzle pieces in place, the Lord gave me back part of my memory. Yeah. So I'm still not as smart as I used to be, but at least now I can think.
Yeah.
I can think for myself. I don't have to have someone tell me what is right or what is wrong, because the Holy Spirit tells me what's right and what's wrong, and how to make good decisions.
What would you say to somebody that they don't know who they are and they feel like they're missing something? Like if you could go back and speak to 26-year-old Miss Reko.
Yeah.
What would you say to yourself then?
I would say, let me disciple you. Let me show you what the word has to say. Let me show you where there are fallacies in your thinking, because you're looking at it from a temporal perspective. You're looking at it from, this world is all there is. And this world is not all there is. This world is just a stepping block into eternity, and where we spend eternity depends on what we do here in time. So the better choice is to find out what God's word says and then walk it. But stopping before you try to walk it, and ask Jesus to walk with you.
Yeah.
Okay? Because you can't do it. Trust me, you can't do it on your own, but it is doable to live Christian. It is doable to live holy. It is doable to live righteous. But you got to want to. You got to want to. And there are a lot of people who say, well, no, the fun's over here in the club. I want to have a beer. I want to do this. I want to do that. That's death. That's death.
How about on the aspect of who found it difficult? I guess I know it'd be difficult if you weren't a Christian, finding out who your dad was, or you finding it difficult to handle the forgiveness of that aspect of things. How are you?
There was a time when I hated his guts.
Right.
Didn't know him from
naturally.
I hated him. Okay, I hated the thought of him. But by the time I found out who he was, the Lord had worked such forgiveness internally in me. I have no animosity. I know that what he did was wrong. I don't know why he did it, but I know that the Lord allowed it, and that had he not interacted with my mother, I wouldn't be here. Mm-hmm. So temporally, he's a scumbag. Eternally, what I've decided, that either he is in heaven and I will have all eternity to get to know him, or he is in hell and he messed up and I've lost nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think he even knew that you existed?
No, he had no idea I existed.
So in some way, like the boyfriend that pressures the girlfriend to get an abortion is a deeper scumbag.
Yes.
Yes. He didn't know.
No,
he made a terrible decision. We don't know the
did.
circumstances of any of that. I'm not justifying or trying to sugarcoat the reality of what happened.
Right.
But, if he didn't ever even know.
No, he never knew. He never knew. He left this earth never knowing that I existed.
And you know that for sure?
I know that for sure.
Wow.
Because where she was at the time that they ran into each other was in Connecticut. And when the summer was over, my grandmother had gone up there for summer work. When the summer was over, they went back to Florida. My mother didn't know she was pregnant until she got back to Florida. And she never
went back to Connecticut.
She never saw him again.
Oh, gotcha.
He attacked her on the street. She never saw him again, ever. She never knew his name.
So she didn't even know who he was.
No, she had no idea. No.
Wow. There is, again, it's just, part of this is you just struggle for the right question to ask.
Okay.
You struggle with the depth of, it just feels like words tumble out of your mouth and don't measure to the gravitas of what you're saying.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry for that.
It's okay.
Doing my best with how to phrase particular questions.
Okay.
So if I stumble through this, my apologies. But I think I'm understanding what you're saying in the sense of there is something beautiful about how the Lord can take the absolute grossest things that happen and still use them for his glory and his purpose and his meaning. And there's something that humanity, you either have that assurance or you don't.
Right.
Right?
Right.
I mean, people get raped all the time, but there is either a God who's in control and can work some things for his goodness, or this is random and this is just bad luck, bad timing, bad placement, and there is no meaning or purpose. But you have found the meaning in it all.
Praise God.
And hasn't that helped in the forgiveness angle of it?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Well, I think that's just a proving point of itself that God exists and you have purpose in your life, is being able to forgive an action like that.
Yeah.
I mean, that to forgive somebody that did such a heinous thing is supernatural.
Right. That's not normal.
Well, my struggle right now is knowing that my father has 3 sons, and my struggle right now is not to push my way into their lives. They don't really want anything to do with me. So what I thought about, because at one point I was like, oh yeah, you're going to tell me what I need to know about who this man was. You need to know who I am. We need to have some relationship. And then I thought, no, you know what? The sin of Eve was that she reached her hand out to take what she thought God had not given her. Okay?
Right.
So he didn't give me my father. He, on no level did he give me my father. And so it would have been my sin to push my way into their lives.
To touch what is the forbidden fruit.
The forbidden fruit. Yeah.
I think that this ties in really well with what you're saying. You know, there is within culture right now a lot of conversations about victim culture, being victimhood.
Yeah.
There is,
Thank you.
you know, to some extent, even like a political strategy in keeping people feeling like they're victims. But you're saying, like, you made a choice. I'm not going to be a victim.
I'm not going to be a victim. I'm not.
Elaborate on that, and then speak to people that maybe feel that way.
Okay, so in the final analysis of life, my mother was black, my father was full-blood Italian, Pope Creighton.
Yes.
Okay, so I am half Italian. However, for all purposes that count, I am black.
Mm-hmm.
Now, does that define who I am? Is my first identity being black? The answer is no. My first identity is being Christian.
Right. I have a new identity in Christ Jesus.
I am Christian, and everything, all of my life views, all of my purpose, everything comes through that filter first. I am Christian. After that, I am black and American, and you can intertwine those two, whether I want black first or American first, I don't know. But the first thing I am
It's Christian.
is Christian. So,
is a child of God.
yes. And because of that, my perspective is eternal. If something gets on my nerves or it really starts to bug me, I have to choose to see it, not for what I can see here, but for what's here. And if I reshift my focus, it takes away the victimhood. Because what's here is wood, hay, and stubble is going to burn.
Right.
Okay? If I can refocus myself to see beyond the dysfunction in front of me, then I can see possibly what God is doing and cooperate with that.
Yeah. So the remedy to victimization, victimhood, and even maybe the mechanism towards forgiveness,
Yeah.
is again coming to the identity I have in Christ Jesus. That I am not my biology.
Right.
I am not my 23andMe.
Right.
You know, I'm not even my parents. I'm not even my parents.
No, I'm not. I'm not.
You've kept referring to this gentleman as your father. Why do you phrase it that way?
He did not function as a father figure in my life, but he is my sperm donor. So,
You just call him your donor?
but you know, that's so impersonal.
I got you.
You know, so he for good or bad, he is the reason that I am here, because he interacted with my mother. So for respect of that office, he is my father.
Gotcha. So I think it's really an amazing thing that you can call him your father, when, you know, just again with the whole story. I mean, the testimony of the depth of forgiveness,
Yeah.
and the depth of, I think, true healing.
Yes.
I mean, I know a lot of other people that have a hard time calling their father's father,
And their fathers were actual fathers.
and they've done a whole lot
Yeah.
less.
Well, you know, I have had many holes filled emotionally, just knowing who he is. You know, I have lived
Yeah.
my entire life not knowing, and it's like the holes have been filled in. I'm whole. Does that make sense?
It does. It does. No, I think there's something. Like Jesus said, the truth will set you free.
Yes, and it did.
And for
It did.
I can only imagine. And again, this is trying to put words to really deep things. Not knowing at all, and then and it being fed by rumor mill and stigma, and I don't look like everybody else, and you know, like a whole half of you is a grand mystery.
It is still a grand mystery. Yeah.
But
I
think
do have a picture, though. Yay.
But I think the deeper thing is you do have a picture, and it's the cross of Jesus Christ.
Yes.
And that's your Father,
Yes.
your heavenly Father. Anything else? I mean, we're running out of time here.
No. I want to say that if you are facing something that is like an elephant on your back, give it to Jesus. He is the answer for every problem, for every question, for every difficulty. It's the Lord. But you have to trust him. You have to give it to him. You have to literally lay down your life before him and let him be your God. He is God, and he's going to be God, whether you like it or not. It's your responsibility just to get in line with who he is, know his word, and walk it.
And if there's somebody thinking about getting an abortion,
Don't.
look into one of those cameras, whatever one that
Don't do it. Don't do it. There's so many people who need a baby, who want a baby. There's so many difficulties, physical, emotional, spiritual, that you will encounter for the rest of your life if you take the life of that child. You're not God. You can't do it. You cannot take that child's life. Let God be God in your life and walk with him.
And I think we could add, and you can speak to this, that, you know, sometimes, like, let's say that the baby has been conceived in rape, or maybe even taking it away from the extreme. Let's say it's a woman whose child, they're thinking, I can't give this kid I can't give him a stable home. The daddy wants nothing to do with us. I'm going to try to do this on my own. Sometimes I can't give that kid the type of life that they deserve.
Right.
You're a living testimony of, like, you went through, your mom made a very difficult decision, didn't have options,
Right.
per se, and you were raised by some others as well. And you were in a town where there was stigma.
Oh, yeah.
Like, you kind of had the worst scenario of that scenario. Mm-hmm. And what would you still say? Give me a chance of life, right?
Give me a chance at life. Give me a chance at life. Because you don't know who that kid is that you're carrying. You don't know what his purpose and his plan, the Lord, with the purpose, his purpose and plan for that child's life is. You don't know who you're killing. You don't know. And it could be, you know, the next person who solves a major crisis in life. You have no idea. Now, the problem, Zach, what I kind of walked around is the idea that when we give our lives to the Lord, it's easier to walk. It is easier. It sounds like it's not, but it is. For those who are not yet trusting the Lord and they want to live, and say, I can't get this kid a good life, they need to start first by getting to know who Jesus is.
Yeah.
The first step to solution is walking with the Lord. And then he can move things, he can move mountains, he can do all kinds of things that we have no way of knowing. He does amazing problem solving.
Right.
Amen.
Amen. Creighton, you have any questions that you want to ask your mama who's sitting right here?
Is my dad still in the state?
No.
No. Okay, I wasn't sure.
That was your question? That's what you...
No.
Well, a lot of the stuff I've known. I have a couple of questions about this kind of thing. Like, one of them is there any point at which you would want to force your way into, I'm going to call them the Italians.
Okay.
Because
The Italian delegation.
Exactly, the Italian delegation. Like, is there, because I'm sure we could. And one of the reasons that I wanted to do 23andMe originally, because my mom lived, most of her life, 50 years, 60 years, not knowing who her father was. I spent 27, 29 years not knowing who my grandfather was. So I'm about as half as affected as my mother is, judging from the math, because I didn't know what a quarter of me was. And I was not nearly as forgiving when I did the 23andMe as my mom was when I told her that I was doing it. Because I was like, screw this guy. Like, I don't care if he has a legacy. Screw him.
A perfect life that we're about to radically interrupt.
Let's roll in and
Yeah.
either one of two things. Either screw him, he doesn't get a legacy, or B, his legacy is me, and not in a good way. Like that was the way that I was thinking about it.
This man's legacy is an up and coming podcast star.
Yes.
Yes.
Who's dark, and has tattoos on his fingers.
That was a weird addition.
I do, and I saw them. So
we should talk to your mom about your tattoos.
Mama doesn't like them.
Have you seen the one?
What would be the? How did that thing drop again? Gosh,
Keep
dang.
talking.
Would you ever want to? What would the reunion? What would the desire be to meet them if you were going to?
If I was going to meet them, I just really want to know who he was. I want to know if he sang, or if he danced, or if he
gave his life to Jesus,
or if he gave his life to Jesus.
because he didn't know. I mean, he knew he'd done something wrong, but
Right.
he didn't.
He had no idea. He never thought about my mother again.
Right.
Okay.
Well, he probably did,
Yeah, but
because we have a God of conviction and
True.
judgment.
true. But
But he didn't know about he didn't know. He actually, how about this? He never had the opportunity. He only lived with his sin.
Right.
He never had the opportunity to see the beauty that came out of his sin.
That's true.
And that's
true.
his judgment.
That's
The
true.
judgment is he never got to see you.
No.
He never got to see your
Me or my
family,
brother
your
or my
legacy.
dad?
No.
He only lived with the guilt
Right.
of a stupid thing that him and his buddies did one night.
Yeah.
And that because I know God and I know how God works, that haunted him forever.
Thank
Let's
you.
hope.
Thank you.
It did, unless, and hopefully, it drove him to his knees one day to accept the forgiveness of Jesus Christ.
I hope so. I hope to meet him in heaven. I hope he's there. I really do.
So he did experience a bit of judgment,
Okay.
and I don't think, and again, you got, again, not to interject, but like going back to what you're saying, the forbidden fruit thing, that was
Yeah.
a brilliant. I love that. That was a really pretty powerful point. I mean, I think you should carry that. I think that there's
Yeah.
some legit, like that's legit. But at the same time, his you said he has three boys.
He has 3 boys.
They didn't do anything wrong.
No.
And in all likelihood, they probably had no idea.
No.
I'm certain they don't. I wouldn't have told my kids.
So at the same time, it's like they're innocent in the situation. Now, my guess is that they know you exist, right?
I tried to
Because
reach
Creighton,
out.
they kind of know. Because that's how
So-
23andMe works.
Yeah, that's a good question. When I
didn't
did my
respond.
23andMe,
I understand that, yeah.
when I did my 23andMe, and if you're an Italian who lives in Connecticut,
Like 2/3 of Connecticut is Italian.
I don't know anything about Connecticut. I've never been
He still
there.
thinks Chattanooga's in North Carolina.
South Carolina.
Agreed.
South Carolina.
So anyway,
It's a good topic we could
Yeah,
bring
it
up.
is.
so the way that it came up is I had a few hits when I did my 23andMe. One of them is, I guess he'd be my first cousin.
Yes.
He would be one of my mother's now brother's eldest sons. He was named after our
After,
shared grandfather.
right.
Like he showed up on 23andMe, and I messaged him and was like, "Hey, this is weird.
Right.
Do you know the guy at the top of our fork?" And I never got a response. And then I did basically the same thing to all of the relatives that showed up on 23andMe, and I got one response back from somebody that's like a fourth cousin or something,
Right.
whose grandmother knew.
Okay, how did you
my
get a
great-aunt.
picture?
The one that responded to him, the fourth
Had it.
cousin,
Mm-hmm.
is the granddaughter of my father's baby sister.
Yes.
There were
Okay.
So my father's parents were immigrants out of Italy. They had 5 kids, 4 girls, 1 boy. Okay. The baby girl is this cousin's grandmother.
Gotcha.
And when she was talking to me, I mean, we texted
Yeah.
back and forth, and she sent me the picture. She identified who was who, so I can see my grandparents, I can see my father, I can see his wife and his sisters.
So you got close enough for that. That's all.
Yes.
Yeah. Wow.
But then as soon as I told her that he had raped my mother, she shut me down.
I can imagine.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I can imagine.
yeah.
Well, on that real happy, positive
Yeah,
note,
that's a good way to end the
you,
episode.
you got any other? You never really actually asked a question.
Me?
Yeah, within
I did
that.
not.
What was the question?
No, my question was just like I don't.
How far do you want to push it? It's the forbidden fruit, man.
Right. Yeah, my question is I want to be vindictive because I'm a bad person.
You are not a bad person.
Well, yeah.
You tell him,
But
Miss Reko.
He's not.
I don't know. I still have like I have not gotten where you've had a lot more time, but I've not.
You've not
there.
forgiven us.
No, absolutely not.
Yeah.
I want to roll in and be like, "Yo, what's up? We're black. Let's go." Like,
You can't do that.
Yeah. Well, and then, but I will say, in Creighton's defense, a little bit, for you come into this, obviously it's loaded. Creighton comes in not as loaded, but somebody messed with his mama,
yeah.
and it's you don't mess with my mama.
That's right.
Or
And-
my grandmother. She's awesome too.
Yes.
Yeah.
But also my mama. And like that's where I think that's where your heart kind of comes in. And like you're not a
Yes.
terrible person, you're like, I want to right the wrongs of the women in my life.
Yo, I got boys. We can drive to Connecticut.
Which
like,
which honestly, if you're a single lady out there, Creighton takes care of the women in his life.
Right.
And
That's right.
Oh,
Reko, you can make an appeal to anyone. He's
we'll give her the
he's
close-up for
single,
No.
comes from good stock.
Yes, he does.
Yes.
Yes, he does.
So,
Yes.
Spice Daddy, you got anything?
If you like this episode, just give us a like, share, put the notification bell on, as they say.
There you go.
Start commenting. Just kind of share the video. I want to move up from being a potential up-and-coming podcast star to an up-and-coming podcast star and make my way up to the top. That way I can, quit my job and do this
Full-time.
and full-time and do stuff with the church. And
Yeah.
you're my only way to do that. So
That's a personal appeal to the audience.
it is.
To make
It
my
is.
dreams come true.
Yeah, well, it's one of them.
Is it okay that we? I now kind of feel bad about calling him Pope Creighton.
Nah, he's fine.
All right, Pope Creighton works.
Yes,
I like Pope Creighton still.
it works.
Yeah, I went to Calvary Stone Mountain. This was a couple months ago, and I walk in the foyer, and Daryl David, he goes, hey, I thought you would have been coming with he called Spice and Pope C.
Pope C.
Yep.
Yeah, there you go.
So,
There you go. Yes.
you were gonna say?
Yeah, I was just gonna say because we're in closing.
Yeah, we're wrapping up.
If you put a comment and I didn't respond to it and we didn't bring it up, I apologize. I was a bit distracted today.
Yes.
I'm gonna go through them, and if any of them are for my mom, I will share them with you. Thank you, y'all. Also, we're like 4 subscribers short of 400, so subscribe and like the video.
Yes, if you are the 400th, you get nothing.
Hey, congratulations!
But you can say that you're the 400th, and you can make your own T-shirt. We'll send you the logo.
Yeah.
You can make Justin makes his own logos now.
Well, I had somebody else make it for me.
Terrible.
I had the shirt made though.
Zach.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I appreciate it.
No, thank you for coming. And there is, the continuation of the redemption of something terrible
Yes.
is telling the story. And now this is out into the world.
Yes.
Well, I think
And-
yeah. We went. One thing I was saying is like, yeah, we got you. I don't know you as well as I know Creighton, but we wouldn't have Creighton here if that didn't happen. And so the legacy of that sin doesn't have to be a legacy of bad, but
Right.
legacy of blessing and
Taking the negative and made it positive.
so it doesn't just stop. It like so the kind of goes back to the appeals of not doing the abortions. Like
Yes.
the legacies of that child will have far-reaching effects further than just the here and now.
Yeah.
And you pro-lifers out there that try to give this carve out for rape, it's inconsistent, it's illogical, it's unbiblical. I understand the heart behind it, but Miss Reko sitting here, Ryan Baumberger's been on our show before. He's another individual, and there are other options. I totally understand. I went through this terrible thing. But doing something terrible doesn't fix a terrible thing. It actually compounds it and makes it worse.
Makes it worse.
And sometimes ultimate healing, maybe you can't raise that child because of the constant reminder that might exist. And that I think that's a fair thing. But like Miss Reko was saying, there are people all over the place that would love to raise a child. And, that's a whole nother topic because from your own story, I have to imagine why you adopted the Carrington and just that
Yeah.
practicing what you preach. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you.
And we'll have to do it again.
Yeah.
And we'll have to surprise Creighton some other time. So, all right, I'm going to hit some music. Thank you so much for watching the Outlaw Radio Show.
guys.
Thank you again to Miss Reko for being with us. Pope C. Spice, thank you. If you are watching, check out the podcast. The audio of tonight's episode will be released tomorrow. Apple, Google, Spotify. If you're listening, hang out with us one Wednesday night at 8 o'clock. We live stream what you're listening to, and you can put a face to a name. So God bless. Learn more all about the show, outlawradio.org. Outlawradio.org. See you guys next Wednesday.